This is Mzee Ole Manyas, a resident of Ilmotiok in Laikipia County. At his age, it is not normal for such a person to be left alone with children.
Hakuna mali, anakuwa 200. Mgonjwa anamaliza. Hata hiyo njaa, wakati hakuna majani.
After spending some time talking to him under the scorching sun, we noticed his wife walking back towards the homestead while carrying a sack. Together with others from the village, she had earlier rushed to collect food ration from the office of the area chief. Ole Manyas's family is experiencing the effects of drought in what is now common in many homes, not only in the Laikipia Maasai community, but also in Samburu and Isiolo counties.
They don't be able to sustain their livestock economy. People are just sitting idle in settlements because the water is not there.
It is in 1994 that we saw some of the country's worst droughts. From then, the flow has never been normal again for nearly a straight 13 years. People have been receiving relief food.
Most families in the 3 counties located in northern Kenya are currently not in a position to feed themselves. This is Evelyn Mamayo, making her second trip to fetch water from this source along Nanyuki River, one of the tributaries that feed Ewaso Nyiro. She has to collect as much water as she can because it is meant for a restaurant located at Ilpolis, some 40 kilometers away. The fetching of water is taking place at around 10 in the morning, but the previous one took place at around 4 a.m.
Sasa zamani Ewaso tuko na mamisito hapa. Wakati sisi tuko wadogo. Sasa saa hii Jelali amemaliza hiyo misito mpaka inakuwa sasa mbugani kama saa hii miti moja tu ndio kubwa iko karibu na Ewaso.
Borans are divided in 2. There's Ewaso Boran and there's Dire Boran. The Ewaso Boran are people who are living along the Ewaso Nyiro River. The Dire Boran are people who are living in the southern part of Ethiopia. The name Ewaso, the Boran themselves have been identified with that river.
Translated from Maasai to mean the brown water, major sources of Ewaso Nyiro are the melting glaciers found in the western part of Mount Kenya and the Aberdare range of mountains from Nyandarua County.
The pastoralists use this water to feed the animals and for themselves to use or to get food, to get water for domestic use. It is the only river that is serving the northern part of the country.
Most communities in Laikipia, Samburu and Isiolo entirely depend on waters from Ewaso Nyiro River for their livelihoods.
The situation has now become worse. The drought has changed. It is now going continuously. We used to experience a drought from 1984 to 1994. Those are like 10 years period. But now it has gone down to 7 to 6 years.
With support from the Partners for Resilience program, Impact, Indigenous Movement for Peace Advancement and Conflict Transformation, is implementing a project aimed at promoting sustainable livelihoods through improved management, protection and utilization of wetland resources, mainly in the upper and mid-Ewaso Nyiro basin.
The flow is not as good as it was before. The grazing areas, particularly the flood plains and the grazing resources, is also dwindling.
The project focus is to revitalize, strengthen and improve the advocacy and self-organizing capacity for communities living within critical areas of Upper Ewaso Nyiro Basin.
Lack of water also causes poverty, and I can range it as 30% of poverty in our place is caused because of lack of water.
Water is life. and there's no any other big source of soft raw water than the Ewaso Nyiro. And the fact that the levels are fluctuating, it means many lives, that is people, domestic animals and wildlife, are greatly affected.
During the floods, it increases the flooding areas, big flooding areas. That flooding areas, it gives us a lot of pasture for livestock, pasture for sheep and goats, in terms of elephants, in terms of buffaloes, in terms of zebras and the rest.
From Ilngamboli, Ewaso Nyiro meanders north, then east, and finally southeast at Archer's Post in Samburu, before entering Isiolo County to head further eastwards to the Lorian Swamp in Garissa. The swamp is also an important source of water for recharging the groundwater and maintenance of vegetation cover.
Cultural aspects are related to Ewaso Nyiro River. It is giving, the beauty is defined how it meander, how it floods, how it gives livelihood support. So from that social aspect, it has a lot of cultural attachment. All the rituals which we do is done along the Ewaso Nyiro.
We paid visits to several places where the two main water styles are found. In both locations, we found large settlement schemes where thousands of people on daily basis are involved in all manner of agricultural activities.
What is behind me is Mount Kenya, but at this time you cannot see the neck of the mountain, but during the morning session you can see the peak properly. The work we do here is basically farming, vegetables, snow peas, carrots.
Located on the slopes of the Aberdare, Lake Olobolosat is the main source in what was hundreds of years ago a basin that was used by nomadic pastoralists. This area was later occupied by white colonial farmers, and after independence in 1963, the land was subdivided.
Hapa juu ni plains. Sasa maji wakati mvua inanyesha sana, ni lazima iteremke, inateremka hapa, halafu ina consolidate. Kuna wakati inakuja mpaka inaguza hii fence iko hapa. Halafu ikiguza hii fence, wakati huo maji inakuwa nyingi sana. Lakini as time goes by, kama kutoka January this year mpaka sasa hakuja nyesha mvua ya kutosha. Hii inaitwa Duthi River na ni mto kidogo sana. It is the main stream that feeds this lake.
Mount Kenya is the highest elevation in Kenya and the second highest in Africa after Kilimanjaro. For the past 4 decades, there has been rapid change, especially along the slopes of Mount Kenya and the Laikipia Plateau, and subdivision of land is now putting pressure on natural resources downstream. The Aberdare range of mountains form the easternmost wall of the Great Rift Valley and is around 100 kilometers long.
Najua ni jali tu. Sasa nimekuja basi. Kukuja kuiba kwa hizi mashamba tu.
This is one of the several herders here on the watch at Lol Kinyang. Due to inadequate pasture on the community land, these herders from Samburu have made this location their temporary home in the recent past. There seems not to be much activity during the day, but as night falls, these herders will force their starving herds into a private ranch located nearby, a recipe for conflict.
Sasa imekonda, unaona sasa hii njao yote imekonda. Hii ng'ombe inaenda usiku kwa mashamba, inakula usiku, inakula nyasi, ni Maasai inachukua, inaenda.
Na mkishikwa itakuwa namna gani?
Tunalivishwa tu. Ng'ombe moja ni 200.
Hai, tumepata shida hapa. Siku hiyo hii maji imeisha. Mpaka hakuna kwa hiyo sasa. Mali inaenda mpaka Mount Kenya.
Normally it happens when Samburus of Laikipia and Maasai of Laikipia during dry season, they just merge and move like herds to safeguard their animals.
Na huko baridi ile mpasa na msa watu. Washa ng'ombe anamsanga zaidi na mkonjo yuko mingi kwa maana hiyo area ya mnyama apori.
There was brutal eviction that resulted to conflicts.
More settlers continue to encroach on the riparian lands, and although people around the lake consume water from up the hills, farming activities very close to the lake continue to cause massive siltation. This is making the lake very shallow, containing less water than in the past. Other water catchments like this one, next to a residential area not far from the lake, is not secured either. Human beings and cattle roam in this catchment area at will, and in the process pollute water here.
There's a high level of pollution going on. Since there are houses and people throw a lot of papers, a lot of dust just next to the wetland. Also the houses, people have erected houses next to that wetland.
This is Gatambara Springs, located on the slopes of the Aberdare Mountains, where we found these pipes tapping water to irrigate numerous farms downstream. One could easily tell the number of farms being irrigated just by counting the number of connections. This is one of the several sources of Ewaso Nyiro River.
Wakati huu tuna over 1000 connections. Maji yetu yametoka huko juu wa Aberdares.
Ikikaakaa nakuja inajifuga kwa hii mashimo. Sasa inabidi kwa wiki nakuja unapaguza.
We have surveyed this river from the Aberdares to the confluence of Nanyuki River, and we were shocked that by the time you get to Asher's Post, there is no water. And considering the number of rivers that empty into the Ewaso Nyiro, I expected a huge river, not a place you can walk across.
The water that manages to flow into Ewaso Nyiro River is also threatened by activities in areas where communities are already suffering. Multiple sources confirm that a private ranch in Laikipia is generating power without following laid-down procedures. This is another example of a large-scale farm at Ngiro that we found drawing huge amounts of water in total disregard of other users downstream. We captured the following scenes along the Ewaso Nyiro River and its tributaries. People were either bathing or washing clothes just next to water sources. In such places, human activities introduce pollutants to surface waters, causing a decline in the health of our rivers and streams. Ewaso Nyiro North Catchment Area has experienced extensive degradation in the past as a result of deforestation, encroachment into water catchment areas, cultivation in wetlands, and overgrazing.
The biggest challenge is talking to people to convince them, to organize them, to register them, so that we can control the abstraction.
These activities destroy surface cover, resulting in increased surface runoff and soil erosion. The eroded soils are carried by surface flow and deposited in the rivers, dams, and pans, resulting in reduced storage capacity. Women and young girls, who are the major role players in accessing and carrying water, are prevented from doing income-generating work or attending school, as the majority of their day is often spent walking long distances for their daily water needs. Women and girls are also at an increased risk for violence since they travel such great distances from their villages on a daily basis.
Sasa unajua ukibeba hii mitungi zote, ukienda kulala unasikia maumivu huko kote, kifua. Tuka hiyo.
Vision 2030 is Kenya's long-term development blueprint to create a globally competitive and prosperous nation with a high quality of life within the next 16 years. The vision aims to transform the country into a newly industrializing middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens by 2030 in a clean and secure environment. Among the projects is the construction of mega dams in various places in the country. Among those locations is this place, which is along Ewaso Nyiro River.
The environmental impact assessment was not participatorily done, meaning that the people who depend on this water, on this river for the last many years and their downstream have not been adequately consulted.
What they are proposing this mega dam is to put a very big wall that can take about 1 year and some months for it to fill and overflow. If you put this wall and we block water Ewaso Nyiro, what will happen to the livelihood or to the vegetation or to the wildlife or the people living behind that wall?
We are saying until the government come down, take our views into consideration, we will not accept it. And if the government fails to accept our views, there is an international convention, we can go to anywhere to demand for our rights.
Not all that is happening upstream is bad news to communities in the lowlands.
I'd like to encourage our community members. I've learned something about the dam liners.
This is an annual general meeting of Ngushishi Water Resource Users Association in Timau, one of the settlements in the upper Ewaso Nyiro catchment area. Popularly known as RUAS, this is a community-based voluntary association of water users sharing the same water resources.
Kwa sasa, shifti moja inapata maji saa 12 mpaka saa 6, na hiyo ingine, sehemu hiyo ingine wanapata kutoka saa 6 mpaka saa 12. Tumewagawanya hivyo ili angalau kila memba apate maji ya kukunywa pamoja na mifugo yake.
Sasa kama season hii sio wengi wenye wanadirai na mvua watavuna. Nenda kwa shamba yako, tafuta aswa sana ile kona ambaye haina rotuba mingi, weka ndamu hapo. Na ukiweka ndamu itakuwa ya manufaa sana. Ukiweka hiyo water pan, utakuja sasa kukinyesha, kuharvest maji uweze kutumia.
The main aim of such an organization is to institute management controls, plan for the development of resources, promote dialogue among water users, and ensure reasonable flows for upstream and downstream users.
Sisi nafanya hii kazi pamoja na Mungu na pamoja na akili, na sisi na hii akili ya sisi natoka pande ya Australia, wapi jua iko kali kushinda hapa, mvua na potea kushinda hapa, na mchanga sio safi kama ya sisi.
Without Rua, life was very miserable because we used to have conflicts among ourselves, the downstream, midstream, and upstream.
This is another source of spring which makes Ngusisi River. We call this spring Mudhuri Spring, and it produces 12 liters per second.
The Water Act of 2002 recognizes such community-based groups.
It is on the ground, we can see it, and we can read it. And we are very much proud of you. These RUAs, they operate within the legal framework. Before the RUAs start implementing the activities, we have what we call Memorandum of Understanding, which is signed between the WARMA and the RUAs. So if the RUAs do not perform within the MOU, then the WARMA has got the mandate to suspend the RUAs. So
wakati niko na ng'ombe, saa nataabika kwenda kuko kwa mto kuchota maji, labda niko na mtoto, saa natafuta mtu wa kuachia mtoto niendee maji ya ng'ombe. Saa hii naona kuna change.
RUA's work is in collaboration with the Water Resources Management Authority, a state corporation under the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, and charged with being the lead agency in water resources management.
You can see this is the overflow from the springs, and this overflow is not allowed as any obstruction. Water Act 202, it says that you should leave the normal flow so that it can go and corrode with other rivers, so that our friends from down Ewaso Nyiro River also can get water. This amount of water, we say it is 30%. Nobody in Ngosisirua is allowed to obstruct the normal flow of the river. Yeah.
This is a farm in Gushishi, and produce here are watered using drip irrigation, also known as trickle irrigation.
Inatumia maji kidogo na mazao yake ni mzuri sana.
This method saves water and fertilizer by allowing water to drip slowly to the roots of plants, either onto the soil surface or directly onto the root zone.
Tutumiangi fertilizer ya kawaida ya kutoka kwa nduka, tuko na mbolea tunajifanyia sisi wenyewe. Tunatoa kwa ng'ombe.
Apart from growing various types of vegetables, there are fish ponds, beehives, livestock such as cows and goats, rabbits and chickens.
Napata faida kubwa sana, hata sijai fikiria maneno ya kuajiriwa kwa sababu kilimo yetu tunafanyanga kilimo biashara. Hakuna kazi yoyote tunafanya haitoi pesa.
This is a sign of a very successful farming method, and owners of the farm will soon be moving into this modern home, thanks to profits from sustainable farming in the upper Ewaso Nyiro catchment area.
The purpose of using water prudently, efficiently, is to change people's lives. So you can see they're using it on agricultural farms, and it is through these agricultural farms they can get their produce, sell their produce.
These are two farms side by side. The one on the right is community land, while on the left is a private commercial ranch. A closer look will reveal that although they are all found in the same locality, the private ranch contains more green vegetation cover. This is because a distinct discipline, founded on ecological principles and dealing with the use of rangelands and range resources, is being practiced here.
It's good like we train our group ranches members on what we call sustainable rangeland management. How can we conserve our grass? Because the grass is our resources, these are our resources. If you can conserve water, why not the grass?
The likes of Mzee Manyas should be encouraged to diversify and change their attitude and lifestyle by engaging more in irrigation activities.
Saa hii maji ikifika kwa hii mawe, mimi nitalima shamba nyuma ya hii mamiti.
Since the area is also rich in wildlife, people here should take advantage of not only streamlining community lodges, which are largely mismanaged, but also set up more in order to attract visitors.
If you can have community lodges that can be able to sustain ourselves in terms of we can get money, you can employ people, and at the same time you are conserving your wildlife and you also grasslands.
Greenhousing, an efficient use of land for producing fresh vegetables using less water, is another initiative that the locals need to think of seriously. With this type of agriculture, they will be able to grow a variety of crops in such climate to improve on their health at the family level and also sell the surplus.
How can they have alternative livelihood? Instead of just depending on this cow, on this camel, on this sheep, can they shift in and do also some cultivation along the Ewaso Nyiro River when there is a plenty of water?
Commercial beekeeping for honey and fish farming are other projects that can also generate income to most communities in the 3 counties. Investing in large storage tanks should also be highly encouraged.
Mwanzo tungetaka hii spring ya Gadhabara iwe protected, at least iwe fenced off. Miti unaona sasa miti imeanza kukatakatwa hapa.
First thing that can help us is to protect the catchment areas so that we do not lack water even during the drought season. When our catchment areas is protected, we are guaranteed that we will get water even during the drought season.
The problem in Ewaso Nyiro River Basin does not require an emergency action. it requires a development action. It's a long-term action that needs to be discussed exhaustively.
There is adequate for everybody. Only if we come together as stakeholders and we organize.
Na mimi tu sasa mimi nataka kama mimi nasoma somani. Naona hiyo ukisoma mzuri. Anaonyesha maneno mzuri yote wakasi namna hiyo tu.